And Shalom Israel. Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shah Barakatham. Yahweh Shemal Thumb Bashem Yahweh Shah. This is the ISUPK, started out at 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under Commander General Yohana, Precinct Officer Howard Moore, ISUPK, Kentucky. And this is our Monday night history class. Now, before we get into it, I want to invite every so-called Black, Hispanic, and North American Indian to tune in all week long. ISUPK Kentucky weekly content, Monday night history class, Tuesday brotherhood class taught by Officer of 1,000 Wongabar, Wednesday law class taught by Officer of 1,000 ISUPK, Wednesday night podcast Cry Out and Spare Not podcast hosted by Officers of 1,000 Wongabar and ISUPK. Come and listen to these two powerful priests of the Lord break down all of the viral videos going across the internet. All right. Watch them break down your entire timeline. All right. And then every other Sunday, what you ain't learning history class. Now, tonight's topic is integration is a failure. All right. Integration has been a failure for the Lord's chosen people, so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and North American Indians. All right. Integration has been an absolute failure. Shalom to the young man. Integration has been an absolute failure. And we finna get into it. We finna break it down, make it real clear. All right. So, of course, we got a couple of articles for you. You know I got slides on Monday night to prove every point I'm talking about. And then, of course, we finna get into it with the Bible. So, first, let's go ahead on and break into this first article. And again, topic of tonight's class, Monday history class, the failure of integration. So the first article, all right, it says, on May 17, 1954, Supreme Court declared in its landmark unanimous decision, Brown versus the Board of Education, that separate schooling of Black and white children was inherently unequal, marking the dawn of the modern civil rights movement. Over the next 20 years, the civil rights movement put in place laws that attempted to guarantee, essentially for the first time since our nation's founding, that no one should be restricted in their access to education, jobs, voting, travel, public accommodation, or housing because of race. For most people, this was what integration meant. That blacks and whites might not share a social space, but our public institutions, our workplaces, and our schools were no longer to be divided in separate domains with access to the best opportunities determined by skin color. Now that sounds beautiful, right? But we know that the white man speaks with a forked tongue. We know the white man is the devil that the Bible speaks of. All right. Here was one of the problems with Brown versus Board of Education and the integration of the school system. All right. They did not integrate teachers. All right. And countless numbers of Black teachers lost their jobs. All right. Countless number of Black teachers lost their jobs when the schools were integrated. Because again, they integrated the students, but they didn't integrate the teachers. All right. And this was one of the failures of integration, that it caused a lot of Black teachers to lose their jobs. All right, let's walk this down further. All right, it reads, the promise of civil rights laws was that the most private institutions and the hearts and minds of would-be discriminators will remain unregulated. 50 years after the Brown versus Board, we now profess to believe that the United States should be an integrated society and that people of all races are inherently equal and entitled to full privileges of citizenship. Here's the reality. While we accept these values in the abstract, we are mostly pretending that they are true At the dawn of the 20th century, the ideals of integration and equality of opportunity still elude us, and we are not being honest or forthcoming about it. Now, these is white folks talking. All right, these is white folks talking. All right, they know that it's not even possible for them to give us what they have. They know it's not possible for them. They don't have it in their hearts to give us what they have. Well, here's the thing about it. All right, in the ISUPK, under Commander General Yohana, to hell with them and to hell with what they have. All right, we finna get into how segregation, Blacks, Hispanics, and North American Indians were better off. All right, better off educationally, better off financially, better off spiritually, and better off morally than we are today. So again, to hell with them and to hell with what they have. All right, and let's get back into the spirit of being separated from this monster that rules over us. Let's get back into the spirit of being separated from our oppressor. All right, let's walk this down. All right, it says there's a national cognitive dissonance when it comes to integration. It shows through a New York Times poll on racial attitudes. 85% of whites said in response to a poll question that they did not care whether they lived in an area where most of their neighbors were white or where most were black. But in response to another question, 85% of whites said they actually live in areas where they have no or few black people. See, these people don't want to be around us in the first place. All right, when it comes down to people that are more on the liberal side and people that are more on the conservative side. All right, they have the same policies and they have the same beliefs that they've always had. All right, if you go back to the 1860s, the Republican Party was the party of the abolitionists. All right, and the abolitionists believed that black people should be freed. However, black people should also be sent to Africa. It was called the repatriation movement, and former slaves were supposed to leave the United States and colonize countries in West Africa, like Liberia and Sierra Leone. The reason being is because the more conservative white folks never wanted us to be around them in the first place. So yes, they fought for ending slavery. They fought for abolition, but they also fought to send former slaves on the first thing smoking out of here. Okay. Well, if you look today, it's no different than your white conservatives and their readout movement. All right, you have a whole movement of white conservatives moving and starting to occupy the northwestern part of the United States. All right, Idaho, Oregon, Washington State, because again, they don't want to be around us in the first place. It's no different than how the conservatives were back in the 1860s. All right, now when it comes to the more liberal white folk, when it comes to the Democrats in the 1860s, they were the party of slavery. All right, they were the party of segregation. They were the party of Jim Crow. They were the party of the KKK. And it's no different than Democrats today, how they want to keep blacks and Hispanics on the plantation. That's why you had Kamala Harris put on that phony Southern accent when she was in Atlanta at the Rainbow Coalition. When she put on that phony accent, that phony Southern accent in a room full of people from Atlanta. All right, because they want to keep us on the plantation. That's why you had Kamala Harris talking about she can make a mean pot of greens, but she washed them bitches in the bathtub. All right, because the Democrats want to keep us on the slave plantation. All right, so let's go ahead and drop this one and let's get into the next article. All right, next article. All right, next article. Were blacks better off as a people under segregation? Well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Now, the previous article was written by white folks. All right. Now, this article was written by a brother, all right, named Floyd Rose. All right. And he said in a wide-ranging telephone interview, a reporter for the Toledo Blade in February, I asked if blacks were better off as a people under segregation. As a race, I said we were better off economically, educationally, and socially. He said we had our own teachers. Now, we just talked about when Brown versus Board of Education desegregated the schools, that an unknown amount of teachers, black teachers lost their jobs because they integrated the students, but the school boards didn't integrate the teachers. All right. It says we had our own teachers who lived among us in our own neighborhoods, who attended our churches. We knew them and they knew us and our parents. We had a relationship not because of segregation, but because of separation. And Salakia might be having a little bit of technical difficulty. Anybody put a one in the chat if you can read the article where it says were blacks better off as a people under segregation. All right, anybody watching, type a one in the chat if you can read the article where it says were blacks better off as a people under segregation. All right, the water, young man, the water. All right, it says, so anyway, it says we had a relationship not because of segregation, but because of separation. Well, here's the difference. All right, segregation is when is what a superior does to an inferior. All right, and it's not a choice. All right, that's what segregation is. All right, segregation is forced separation, and it's done by a supposed superior to an inferior. Separation, on the other hand, is a choice. All right, and there needs to be a separation from blacks, Hispanics, and North American Indians, the children of God, and the so-called white man, our enemy, our oppressor, our opposer. All right, the devil, according to the Bible. Let's go ahead and break this down a little bit further. It says pre-integration, crime rates in our communities were lower. So what is he saying? That since integration, crime rates have gone up. And we finna get into that in a minute. Although our children were not perfect, our children learned more, and there was more discipline when we had our own code of ethics supported by our own parent-teacher associations. Policemen were never at our schools. They were not needed. Our parents provided all the discipline that was needed. So this man said, back in segregation, there was no need for policemen in our schools. All right. I also want everybody to put a one in the chat. If you went to high school like I did, where they had metal detectors and they had police at the school. All right. Put a one in the chat if you went to school with metal detectors and policemen at the school. All right. Because according to the brother here doing the interview, is that things like that weren't needed. Things like that weren't needed back in segregation. All right, so it says separation is the free choice of one group to separate from the other group for the good of the group. All right, it says Chinatown is controlled by the Chinese. They live there, they run it, they have their own schools, stores, churches, and see Jesus through the slanted eyes of their own culture. All right. They have what whites have. All right. Many blacks, and I'm one of them, think that separation is far better than either integration or assimilation. All right. It says white and black churches are separated. Whites are not denied admission to black churches, and neither are blacks denied admission to white churches. However, they are separated. All right. Blacks who attend white churches don't run them, and the few whites that do attend black churches don't run them. There are obvious cultural differences that are quickly recognized and respected by both churches. All right. So it's talking about the idea of not being forced by white folks to be segregated or being forced by white folks to be integrated, but the choice as a free man to choose to separate from the people that have been oppressing us since they've been on these shores. All right. But let's go ahead and before we get into it with the Bible, let's go ahead on and get into it with these slides right quick. All right, what the sister say? She said she ain't go to school with metal detectors. Okay, that's what's up. I definitely went to school with metal detectors. I definitely went to school with security guards that had the wand to make sure that you didn't have any weapons on you. And I definitely went to school where they had policemen. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. The first thing we need to recognize is that we are not each other's enemy. All right. And what I mean by that is blacks, Hispanics, and North American Indians, we are not each other's enemy. All right. Blacks, Hispanics, and Native American Indians, we have been oppressed together in this place. All right. We are not each other's enemy. All right. We are the same race of people. All right. Blacks, Hispanics, and North American Indians were the same race of people, the chosen people of God, the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. So understand, first of all, that we went through this thing together. All right. We went through suffering and hell in this place under the foot of our oppressor. All right. We went through this thing together. Matter of fact, I got a scripture right quick. All right. The book of Jeremiah, chapter 50, verse 33. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together, and all that took them captives refused, and all that took them captives held them fast. They refused to let them go. All right, the children of Israel, being the 10 tribes of the northern kingdom, so-called Hispanics and American Indians, all right, the indigenous people of the Americas, and the children of Judah, all right, the so-called Black Americans, so-called Haitians, right, so-called West Indians, Jamaicans, etc. All right, the people that were brought to the Americas during the transatlantic slave trade. All right, it says the children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together. All right, so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and North American Indians, we were oppressed together. And all that took them captives held them fast and refused to let them go. All right, you see where it says right here, no dogs, Negroes, or Mexicans? All right, we were all oppressed together in this place. We all have the same enemy, the same adversary, the same oppressor in the white man. All right, so understand that. Not only are we not each other's enemy, but we're the same race of people, All right, the chosen people of God, descendant of the greatest people to ever walk this earth. All right, so keep that in mind. And the Bible says we were oppressed together. All right. Now, since we're talking about segregation, all right, we got to start segregation with a part of history known as the Trail of Tears. Now, I know when most people think about segregation, they think about the Jim Crow laws in the South, where Black Americans, former slaves, were forced to use in inferior facilities. All right, that's normally what we think. We never think about how indigenous Americans were forcefully segregated. All right, so in the winter of 1830, Choctaw Indians began migrating to Indian Territory, which is Oklahoma, along the Trail of Tears. And the Trail of Tears was the forced removal of the 5 civilized tribes. All right, yeah, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Creek, Seminole, and Cherokee. It was the forced removal of these 5 tribes of people, and we were forcibly removed out of our homelands in the South and forcefully taken to Oklahoma. All right, this is segregation. This is segregation. All right, it says Andrew Jackson's Indian Removal Act of 1830 required the Chickasaw people, along with all other Eastern American Indian tribes, to move to the Western Territory. All right, it says the Chickasaw people who remained were often ostracized by white settlers. The Chickasaw were the last tribe to withdrawn in the Oklahoma Territory. So again, the Trail of Tears, the Indian Removal Act, was the forced removal of the Indians in the South and forced to move to Oklahoma. And this was a form of segregation. Now, we just read earlier how the children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together. All right, it says Tulsa's origin begins with the removal of Creek Indians from the ancestral homeland, Georgia and Alabama. Arriving in 1833, the Creek Indians began building the city of Tulsa after a negotiation with Cherokee over boundaries. So we're going to talk about a little bit about what we were able to accomplish during segregation. And we're going to talk about the children of Israel and the children of Judah. All right. And Tulsa is the perfect place because Tulsa was founded by American Indians during forced removal and segregation into Indian Territory, which became Oklahoma. And we're going to talk about how Blacks, Hispanics, and North American Indians came together in Tulsa and built one of the greatest societies during the era of Jim Crow and segregation. All right, so Indians out of the South like this. All right, Creek Indians, Cherokee Indians, Chickasaw Indians, Choctaw Indians, Seminole Indians, etc. All right, it says prosperous communities were built in both Indian Territory and Oklahoma before statehood in 1907. They supported local businesses, schools, newspapers, and churches. All right, so prosperous communities being built in Indian Territory. All right, again, this was the forced removal of the American Indians in the South and forced segregation in Oklahoma. All right, now most Oklahomans know the history behind the title given to the city of Tulsa, oil capital of the world. Major oil strikes were made before the surrounding territory was even granted statehood. So one of the things that we did during forced segregation, when we were forcefully driven out of our homelands in Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, Florida, etc., when we got segregated into Oklahoma, we discovered oil. All right, we discovered oil. And that was the beginning of Tulsa, Oklahoma, beginning to prosper. All right, 1884, the Cherokee Nation passed a law permitting the organization of a company for the purpose of finding petroleum or rock oil and thus increasing the revenue of the Cherokee Nation. All right, so we have to remember that Oklahoma is Indian territory. All right, here's a Cherokee woman here. We got to remember that Oklahoma is Indian territory. All right, Tulsa was a Creek Indian settlement, got a boost when nearby Glenpool oil field was discovered at the early part of the century. Oil barons gave the town its Art Deco stamp and left behind priceless legacies of art and architecture. All right, so Tulsa, which we know of as the city where Black Wall Street was originally a Creek Indian settlement. Again, we got forcefully removed out of our homelands in the southern part of the United States and segregated into Oklahoma. Discovered oil, and then Tulsa began to blow up. All right, B.C. Franklin. All right, a Choctaw Indian. All right, who later became a prominent Tulsa attorney. All right, in Oklahoma in 1910. All right, one of the first prominent people in Tulsa, Oklahoma was a Choctaw Indian named B.C. Franklin. All right, very prominent lawyer in Black Wall Street. And again, this was a Choctaw tribal member who was a prominent attorney in Black Wall Street. So again, we're talking about the children of Israel and the children of Judah being oppressed together. But through our repression, we built one of the most prominent societies in Oklahoma. All right, stringent segregation laws had gone into effect after Oklahoma became a state in 1907. This paved the way for Greenwood to become an insular hub for the black dollar to circulate. Now, Greenwood was a neighborhood in Tulsa that was known as Black Wall Street. It says many of the black residents earned and spent their money entirely within the confines of Greenwood. All right, this is what we don't do today. This is why we're poor and without anything today. Because as soon as we get our paychecks on Friday, we spend it with the white man. We spend it with the African. We spend it with the Arab. We spend it with the East Indian. But during segregation in Tulsa, Oklahoma, all right, in Black Wall Street, an area that was built by black people and American Indians, all right, again, the children of Israel and the children of Judah being oppressed together. It says black residents earned and spent their money entirely within the confines of Greenwood. All right, as Gurley expected. Now, Gurley, we're talking about O.W. Gurley. He was one of the wealthiest people in Black Wall Street. It said Greenwood became a beacon of wealth, education, and advancement, rivaling the areas of New York, Chicago, and Atlanta. All right, doctors, lawyers, realtors flourished, hotels were built, millionaires were minted, and Greenwood was perceived as a place to escape oppression. All right, this is all in Oklahoma. This is all in Indian territory. It was calculated that every dollar spent in Greenwood circulated the black economy nearly 30 times as business thrived. Now imagine being able to spend your entire paycheck in your entire community. Imagine blacks, Hispanics, and American Indians spending all of our money with blacks, Hispanics, and American Indians. All right, that's how you build a thriving black economy. All right, but nowadays, like I said, every time we get paid on Friday, we spend our money with the white man. We spend our money with the African, the Arab, the Chinese, and their nasty ass chicken and rice at the African liquor stores, at the Arab gas stations, at the Chinese corner stores. All right, the Korean corner stores. All right, now we've all heard of C.J. Walker, but how many people have heard of Anne Malone? And again, this was all during the era of segregation. All right, Anne Malone had the top black hair care company in the country, and she was the one that gave Madam C.J. Walker her start as a salesperson. So before there was Madam C.J. Walker, there was Anne Malone. All right, William Leadersdorf, born free in Louisiana, moved to California and acquired 30,000 acres of land before the 1849 gold rush. So we're talking about prosperous people during the era of segregation. All right, Mary Ellen Pleasant. All right, this is her. All right, Mary Ellen Pleasant got rich off of investments and operating boarding houses for rich bachelors in San Francisco. So we're talking about prosperous people during segregation. All right, Robert Church had the most successful black business in Memphis after the Civil War. During the Memphis race riots of 1866, a white mob targeted him for assassination. This is the jealousy of the white man. All right, this is the jealousy of our oppressor. All right, this is the jealousy. This is the jealousy of our oppressor. All right, it says, all right, no need to integrate. That's right. Definitely no need to integrate. It says integration was white Americans stealing black America as well. You're absolutely right. And we actually finna get into it. We're actually finna get into it. All right, so stay tuned. We finna get into it. All right, so we've been talking about prosperous blacks, Hispanics, and North American Indians during segregation. We specifically talked about Tulsa, Oklahoma, because it's where blacks and American Indians built a prosperous city, built the area of Black Wall Street. And now let's talk about what happened during integration. All right, we just read about the prosperous city of Tulsa, Oklahoma. All right, during the era of segregation. It says Greenwood became a beacon of wealth, education, and advancement, rivaling areas of New York, Chicago, and Atlanta. Doctors, lawyers, realtors flourished. Luxury hotels were built. Millionaires were minted. And Greenwood was perceived as a place to escape oppression. All right, it was calculated that every dollar spent in Greenwood circulated the black economy nearly 30 times as business thrived. So we're talking about prosperous cities where the children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together during segregation. So what happened afterwards? All right, 1965, we're talking about the Civil Rights Bill. All right, it says since 1965, it's been illegal to discriminate based on race in voting, education, employment, and housing. Now, the only class of people that the U.S. can legally discriminate against is the convicted felon. It's no coincidence that since Jim Crow has been abolished, there has been a 700% increase in the prison population. Now, we read earlier in the article that the black community didn't have a criminal element during the era of segregation. All right. Didn't have an incarceration problem during the era of segregation. But let's talk about it. All right. Since 1965, it's been illegal to discriminate based on race. But the convicted felon can be discriminated against. And there's no coincidence that since Jim Crow has been abolished, there's been a 700% increase in the prison population. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. All right, the U.S. criminal justice system is being used as a contemporary system of racial control, even as it adheres to the principle of colorblindness. The United States has not ended the use of racial caste. Instead, it has merely redesigned it by targeting black men through the war on drugs. The mass imprisonment of the poor and minorities has exposed the racial bias by American politicians and black leaders, respectively. So what they did was they tried to make it seem like they were going to end racism, right? They were gonna pass a law, the Civil Rights Bill, 1965, that was going to make it illegal to discriminate based on race. But now they're going to discriminate and they're going to use the criminal justice system. And this is how they did it. All right, it says the basic structure of legalized discrimination in today's society hasn't changed, but instead the language of the law used to justify it. In today's era of colorblindness, race is no longer used to justify discrimination, exclusion, and social contempt. Remember, they made it illegal to discriminate based on race. And here was the play. Here was the play. This is how it went down. Instead, officials used the criminal justice system to label persons of color as criminals, and then use this label to continue to use old forms of discrimination in employment, housing, and the right to vote. Now, remember earlier in the Civil Rights Bill, it said you can't discriminate. It's illegal to discriminate on the basis of race when it came to employment, housing, and voting rights. So what do? They turn us into criminals. They make us criminals, and thereby continuing to discriminate in employment, housing, and voting rights. All right, source, the new Jim Crow, mass incarceration in the age of colorblindness. All right, go ahead and check that out if I may. Check out the new Jim Crow, mass incarceration in the age of colorblindness. All right, this is how they ran the play on us. All right, 1986 Drug Abuse Act created a significant disparity in the sentences imposed for crimes involving powder cocaine versus crack cocaine with the ratio of 100 to 1. For example, a drug crime involving 5 grams of crack resulted in a mandatory minimum sentence of 5 years, while crimes involving 500 grams of powder received the same sentence. Well, here was the problem. All right, under Reagan, crack rock was pushed into our communities. All right, check out the whole history behind the Contra scandals, Ronald Reagan, and Oliver North, and how crack was pushed into our communities on purpose. All right, crack was pushed into our communities on purpose. And then here comes the 86 Anti-Drug Abuse Act. And it gave us the 100 to 1 ratio. Right, again, 5 grams of crack got 5 years in prison, while 500 grams of powder got the same 5 years. All right, the number of black people sent to prison skyrocketed from approximately 50 to 100,000 adults to approximately 250 per 100,000 adults. All right, so what happened is there was what's that, quintuple? All right, from 50 to 250, the number of black people sent to federal prison skyrocketed from approximately 50 in 100,000 adults to approximately 250 per 100,000 adults. During that same period of mass increase in black prison rates, there was no change in the number of white people incarcerated in federal prison. All right, this was the play that they ran on us. All right, 1965 landmark Civil Rights Act made it illegal to discriminate based on race when it came to employment, housing, and voting rights. They took those 3 things back from us when they turned us into criminals. Because again, we read earlier that during segregation, we didn't have a criminal element in our neighborhoods. We didn't have an incarceration problem during segregation. All right, this disparity led to even further racial and class imbalance, where minorities faced for harsher punishments for the use and sale of virtually the same drug as their affluent white counterparts. Again, it was the 100 to 1 ratio, where 5 grams of crack cocaine got the same sentence as 500 grams of powder cocaine. All right. So back in 1950, and this is finna take it home. Hey, shalom, Lord in Christ, sir. All right, back in 1950, blacks, Hispanics, and American Indians together only made up 31% of the prison population in 1950. All right, Blacks, Hispanics, and American Indians combined, we only made up 31% of the prison population back in 1950. Again, in an era where it was legal to discriminate on the basis of race when it came to employment, housing, and voting rights. Now, since it became illegal because of the Civil Rights Bill, it became illegal to discriminate on the basis of race when it came to housing, voting rights, and employment. Now the prison population of blacks, Hispanics, and just blacks and Hispanics, now we're 62.6% of the prison population in the year 2000. So after segregation was over with, after Jim Crow was abolished, after the Civil Rights Bill was passed, our prison population doubled. And our prison population doubled because of mass incarceration, all right, mainly because of the 100-to-1 ratio during the so-called war on drugs. All right, during this era, our prison population doubled percentage-wise from 1950 to 2000. All right, this is how they continue to discriminate on the basis of race when it comes to housing, employment, and voting rights. All right, this was the plan. This was the play they ran on us. All right, this was the play they ran on us. So let's go ahead and drop that, and let's get into the Bible. Let's drop that and get into the Bible. All right, Book of Leviticus, chapter 20, verse 26. And ye shall be holy unto me, for I, the Lord, am holy, and have severed you from other people, that you should be mine. All right, the Lord said, ye shall be holy unto me. Now, the word holy means to be separate. For I, the Lord, am holy, and have severed you from other people, that you should be mine. All right, this is separation in the Bible. The Lord sees how integration has destroyed us time and time again. The Lord says he severed us from other people. All right, and this is what the Bible says. All right, don't shoot me. Don't shoot the messenger. All right, take that shit up with God. All right, the Lord has severed us from other people. All right, let's drop that. Let's go to the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 7, verse 6. Deuteronomy 7 and 6. For thou art a holy people unto the Lord thy God. The Lord thy God has chosen thee to be a special people unto himself above all people that are upon the face of the earth. So again, here's that word holy. That word holy means to be separate. And the Lord thy God has chosen thee to be a special people unto himself above all people that are on the face of the earth. See, we're not even meant to be equal with white folks. We're not meant to be equal with Africans, Chinese, Japanese, Arab. We're not meant to be equal with any of these people. We're meant to be above all people that are upon the face of the earth. But we fall and we fail when we don't keep the commandments, and we want to be integrated with the rest of these people. We want to wear red, black, and green on Juneteenth, and want to wear an American flag short set during the 4th of July. Because we refuse to do what God told us to do, which is to separate from the rest of these people. All right, we are not supposed to be integrated in these societies with these other races of people. All right, let's drop that. Let's go to the book of Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 3. Deuteronomy 7:3. Neither shalt thou make marriages with them. Thy daughter thou shalt not give unto his son, nor his daughter shalt thou take unto thy son. So not only is the Lord against integration, but the Lord is against interracial marriages. It says, neither shalt thou make marriages with them. Thy daughter thou shalt not give unto his son, nor his daughter shalt thou take unto thy son. So again, the Lord is not only against integration, the Lord is against interracial relationships. All right. And you shouldn't want to take that daughter. All right, black man, Hispanic man, North American Indian man. We shouldn't want to take the oppressor's daughter. Y'all do know their hair stink when it rains outside, though. You do know they smell like dog when they get wet, right? So we shouldn't even be wanting to take their daughters in the first place. We already pulled out before a couple of weeks back that white women, well, white folks in general, but white women don't even use washcloths. So why would you even want to be in the bed with a woman whose hair smells like a dog and she don't even use washcloths? She don't even use a washcloth to wash up with. All right, the Bible says, neither shalt thou make marriages with them. Thy daughter thou shalt not give unto his son, nor his daughter shalt thou take unto thy son. All right, so let's drop that. Let's go to the book of Exodus, chapter 33, verse 16. All right, Exodus 33 and 16. For wherein shall it be known here that I and thy people have found grace in thy sight? Is it not in that thou goest with us? So shall we be separated, I and thy people, from all the people that are upon the face of the earth. So here we go in the Bible again. So shall we be separated, I and thy people, from all the people that are upon the face of the earth. All right, the Lord intended for us to be a separate and distinct group of people. All right, with our own culture, with our own way of doing things, and not integrated with the people that oppress us. Again, we're so confused that we'll wear red, black, and green on Juneteenth and wear an American flag short set or some American flag Air Force Ones on the 4th of July. All right, so let's drop that. Let's go to 1 Ezra chapter 8, verse 85. 1 Ezra 8 and 85. Moreover, ye shall never seek to have peace with them, that ye may be strong and eat the good things of the land, and that ye may leave inheritance of the land unto your children forevermore. So not only is the Lord against integration, not only is the Lord against interracial marriage, but we're not even supposed to have peace with them. That ye may be strong and eat the good things of the land, and that ye may leave an inheritance of the land unto your children forevermore. Now we read earlier back during the era of segregation, back in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which was founded by Creek Indians. All right, in a time where Blacks and American Indians, all right, built Tulsa, Oklahoma, back when Black Wall Street was built in the Greenwood section of Tulsa, Oklahoma, all right, that the black dollar circulated 30 times. The black dollar circulated 30 times. That's how you build wealth for your children and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren. All right, not integration. Like I said earlier, we get paid on Friday, our money's gone. All right, our money goes to the white man. Our money goes to the African, to the Arab, to the Chinese, to the East Indian with their goddamn fried chicken places. All right. That's why we aren't leaving an inheritance to our children. That's why we're not creating what y'all call generational wealth or whatever the new terminology is. This is why we're not creating generational wealth. Because as soon as we get paid, the money's gone. And we spend our entire paycheck with the rest of the heathen nations. But again, in Black Wall Street, you had people that spent their entire paycheck in their own community. And again, that's how you leave an inheritance of the land into your children. All right, so let's go ahead and drop that one. Let's drop that. Let's go to the book of Revelation, chapter 18, verse 4. Revelation 18 and 4. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, "Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues." So we're talking about the Bible telling us to separate again. When it's talking about come out of her, my people, it's talking about us taking ourselves out of this place, mentally, spiritually. All right, we know it's not talking about literal, because no matter where we run to on this planet, we can't escape the curses of the Most High. All right, so when it's talking about come out of her, it's talking about taking our spirit out of this place. It's talking about forget about the upcoming election. All right, forget about whether you're going to vote for Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. Who gives a damn? All right, regardless of who's president, Donald Trump or Kamala Harris, all right, Detroit's going to look the same. Chicago is going to look the same. St. Louis, Atlanta, Houston, Little Rock, Arkansas, all of these places are going to look the same. Jackson, Mississippi, all right, all of these places are going to look the same. Baltimore, Maryland, Dallas, Texas, all these places are going to look the same. Nothing is going to change for the Lord's chosen people in these cities. All right, so voting Donald Trump or Kamala Harris isn't going to matter. All right, that's what it's talking about. Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye not receive of her plagues. But one of the sins it's talking about is there's been a push for homosexuality, the LGBT community, to be pushed into our communities. All right, I can't turn a black show or a black movie on today without seeing some gay shit. All right, every time I turn on a black show or a black movie, they've got some sort of LGBT shit in it. All right, this is one of the sins that the Bible's talking about not being a partaker in that ye receive not of her plagues. Because there's a plague coming to America. All right, believe it or not, there's a plague coming to America, and it's called thermonuclear war. All right, verse 5. For her sins have reached up to heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquities. All right, God remembers the iniquities of this place. All right, the day of the Lord is under 1,000 years. All right, the Lord remembers slavery. The Lord remembers lynching. The Lord remembers our babies being fed to alligators. The Lord remembers pregnant women being slit open down the middle and babies falling and hitting the floor. All right, the Lord remembers all the lynchings of 100 years worth of lynching. The Lord remembers mass incarceration. All right, the Lord remembers these things. The Lord remembers Sandra Bland. The Lord remembers Nat Turner. All right, the Lord remembers what's the new sister's name? The sister that was just shot in the house, Sonia Massey. All right, the Lord remembers the iniquities of this place. And again, America's got a plague coming. America's got a plague coming. All right, so let's drop that. Let's drop that and let's talk about since we're separating from our enemies, let's talk about who we're supposed to integrate with. All right, Ezekiel 37:16. Moreover, thou, son of man, take thee one stick and write upon it Judah, and for the children of Israel and his companions, and take another stick and write on it Joseph, the stick of Ephraim, and for all the houses of Israel and his companions. So again, it's talking about the children of Judah and the children of Israel. All right, we're talking about the children of Judah, all right, the so-called black man, and the children of Israel, the so-called Hispanics and North American Indians. All right. And it's talking about take one stick, write upon it for Judah and for the children of Israel and his companions, and take another stick and write upon it for Joseph, the stick of Ephraim, and for the house of Israel and his companions. Verse 17. And join them one to another into one stick, and they shall become one in thine hand. Now, one of the first slides we showed is that blacks, Hispanics, and North American Indians, we went through hell together in America. We went through oppression together in America. And the Lord is calling blacks, Hispanics, and North American Indians to integrate with each other. All right, to separate from our enemies and integrate with each other. All right, this is going to be part of the salvation of our people. All right, it says, verse 19, say unto them, thus saith the Lord God, behold, I will take the stick of Joseph, which is in the hand of Ephraim, and the tribes of Israel, his fellows, and will put them with him, even with the stick of Judah, and make them one stick, and they shall be one in my hand. All right, this is the integration. This is the coming together of blacks, Hispanics, and North American Indians. All right, this is the coming together of black and brown, and putting away all the bullshit that was started up by the white man in the first place. All right, we're not each other's enemy. We're the same race of people. And this is what it's talking about, bringing together the tribes of Judah and the house of Israel. All right, the southern kingdom, the northern kingdom, blacks, Hispanics, and North American Indians. All right, it's time to separate from our enemy. All right, separate from the white man, separate from the African, separate from the Chinese, the Arab, the East Indian. All right, and join ourselves with our brothers and sisters. All right, so-called blacks, Hispanics, North American Indians, the 12 lost tribes of the nation of Israel. And before we end it, we'll read the security announcements. All right, we have the ISUPK started out of 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York. Rule for new brother or sister: when a new brother or sister comes into the school, they are off limits for 6 months. They are to be saluted only. They are here to share themselves with the world. If they need transportation, the teacher will arrange it. After 6 months, if the brother or sister has interest in a particular person, he or she must get permission from the head to speak to a brother or sister. Another 6 months in which the brother and sister will court each other. After this 6-month period, the brother and sister will get permission from the head to marry. Tithes, a commandment, Numbers 18:21, Malachi 3:8-10. 10% of every penny of any increase the Lord gives you. Priest fund, free will offer, not mandatory. Whatsoever amount you would like. Upcoming Holy Convocation, memorial blowing of the trumpets, Wednesday, October 2nd. With that, we'll go ahead and end it. Shalom. Yahweh by Shemi Hawashai Barakathon. Yahweh Shemalathon by Shemi Hawashai. ISUPK under Commander General Yohana. Class dismissed.